Such a beautiful garden, it's gorgeous. Tell me a little bit about Mosaic Woburn.
Well, it's a concept that started quite a while back. I always wanted to have a gallery that's got something else attached to it, and when the property came available we grabbed it, because we used to have a gallery that closed for whatever reasons 6 years ago, and the idea was to have a dual business in one premises. So it's an art gallery from 10 till 5 and then a lounge bar from 5 to 10. So and with the lounge bar itself we don't pack everything away, so you're surrounded by original art while having a drink, and we got a really wonderful wine list and platters, charcuterie, cheese, smoked salmon, pickles, fresh bread. It's sort of grazing food, which works really well because people don't want to go home at the end of the evening.
It is a really friendly place with a fabulous ambience.
It creates a really beautiful atmosphere, and what works really well for us, because of what we're offering, 9 times out of 10 tables will merge by the end of the evening and people will leave as friends, which is lovely for us.
So you've set up this very unique, lovely place, and everything's going very well, and then all of a sudden this news comes. Tell me about that evening, because you were telling me earlier that you didn't have really very much notice at all.
No.
So
we had, there was talk of lockdown, so we knew it was coming at some point, and because we're in hospitality as part of our business, it will affect us as well. When it was coming, we didn't know.
So Barry, thank you so much for giving us this interview about COVID. And just tell me, when COVID first started to become apparent, where were you?
Well, I was in England when we knew about it, and it was the sort of about the beginning of February. We'd heard quite a bit about it and whether you should fly, and I know that obviously flying on planes can spread germs and things. So I then flew out to America around about the 23rd of February. I was due out for about 10-12 days, and got to Los Angeles, and the first thing I noticed when we landed was nobody had masks on. There was more masks in England. Nobody had masks on. No messages. There was nothing saying be aware, stand clear, keep separate. And I was with the TV presenter, and she said, "Oh, just hang back a bit, Barry. There's a group of Chinese just come in here," and not being racist anyway. We were aware that it was a Chinese thing, and there was maybe a problem. So we just stood, and there was like 6, 8, 10, 12, and suddenly there was like over 100, and we thought, oh, okay, no problem, just let them go through. Then if you're familiar with Los Angeles airport, it's just queue after queue after queue. It's at least 2 hours, and clearly our flight and their flight landed at the same time, and we were all herded into customs and border control, where we stood for 2 hours with lots of them sneezing. And Asians anyway tend to wear masks quite a lot. Even in England, it's a cultural thing they do. Mainly, I think it's mainly to do with their pollution, the air pollution in the streets. I looked, and my TV presenter was a bit nervous. I said, "No, look, don't look. Nobody's got masks here. There's none of the, the Americans are not. They're fanatical about health and pharmacies. Nobody's saying anything at all. There's just let's get through the queue and get to work." So we did, and we were straight to work. I mean, literally at work within 2 hours of being there. And then we got to do a couple of journeys, and on the one journey we were going near Las Vegas. So I said, we're pulling to Las Vegas for a day, fun place, we'll take a bit of time, do some filming. And we arrived quite late on the night, decided to just go to bed, not go out late, and just have the full day the next day. And then the next day I woke up and I just wasn't well. and I'm used to travelling, I'm used to jet lag, I'm not, you know, I get an average of 3 or 4 hours sleep if I'm lucky, so I was not in any way thinking there's a problem. It was just I felt off down. I said to Monica Price, the TV presenter I was with, I said, look, you're in Vegas, go and have a day, do your thing, I'm not right, and we've got a lot of work to do the next 8 days. And I spent the whole day in bed, which is just don't happen, you know, it doesn't happen for me. And by the end of the day, she came back, she was really worried, she'd phoned 2 or 3 times, I said, no, I'm just rough. And then the next day I felt a little bit better, but I knew I wasn't right. So kind of the adrenaline tends to kick in, and you feel your energy levels dropping and everything changing, but you're working harder. It's a bit like accelerating to get there faster.
So it's just like something's lingering around, but you
yeah,
can't see what
but
it
at
was.
no point then did I think COVID, oh my God, COVID.
So when COVID first broke out on the news, and there was a rumour that there was this SARS-like flu making its way over to the UK, I was having the time of my life in a musical called Blitz by Lionel Bart. And ironically, the subject of the musical was about a community in the East End, World War II, the bombs are going off, they're in an underground shelter, and the message of the story was all about community, love across the differences, and, you know, rising over adversity. So there were 20 of us in this show, and we were performing it at a lovely little theatre called the Union, which is a really popular fringe theatre in Southwark. And it's a theatre, it's also a cafe, and there's a pub space, and there was a rehearsal space. And they don't make much money, but they have a very loyal following, and they've been going for over 10 years, as a number of theatres around that area have done. So we were hearing about this coronavirus, not paying too much attention, and being the optimistic actors that we are, thinking it'll all blow over, you know, and these are just bad rumours, because the media tend to get a bit more dramatic than actors do. So luckily for us, we finished our show, it was the first week of March, and we were all looking forward to coming to see the following play in our season of World War II plays. There was a play called Peace in Our Time, directed by our wonderful director, Phil Wilmot. I'm mentioning him because I need to talk about what he's up to with relation to COVID. And sadly, we were all set to go to the Union, and suddenly there had been this announcement by the government not forbidding theatres to open, but basically forbidding audiences to go to the theatre. Very subtle difference. What this meant was that the theatres realised that nobody was going to come to their venues as the crisis was just kind of, you know, going up this peak. And so the theatres were effectively, you know, getting the hint that they needed to think about whether they were going to shut down. And if they shut down, could they afford to pay their staff? You know, there was nothing. If, for instance, the government had said, it is our legislation that the theatres must close, the theatres would have been at liberty, and the production companies could have claimed on their insurance. But this is where we are. This is why the theatre industry and show business in general is in such a terrible situation. And I know that, you know, I can relate to this. The general public are probably thinking, we need hospitals, we need jobs, we need deliveries. Do we need theatre? We need football. Theatre is kind of last on the list. But please, when you think about it, theatre, mental well-being, you think about children going to see a pantomime at Christmas. It's something families look forward to. You think about all the programmes you ever watch on television. Where did those actors get their training from? Most of them, forget about the modern influencer thing that's happening, but most of them will have gone to an acting school, and they would have got their training. Well, acting schools, theatres, concerts, it's all suddenly come to a grinding halt. It's like we have been given an injection, and we've all, I feel for us in the industry, it's like we've died and we're in this kind of limbo space.
So Nikki, I remember a day like this. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. You would have queued up outside here for a seat.
Yeah.
And I remember being in here, great atmosphere. There was gym bar going on, and I mean, it's just everybody loves this pub.
Yeah.
So tell me what your story is about. When you first heard about COVID and
COVID. I think we were like everybody else. We sort of went, oh, it's there. I don't listen to the papers. I don't read them. I'm not going to look at them. You just hear what's going on around you, and the pub started to get quieter. In the space of a week, people sort of dropping off, and it's thinking, oh, where's Thursday night Chris? Where's Wednesday night Paul? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where are these people? And then it got to the Friday, and we were already doing deliveries, beer deliveries, because we could see that people were saying, we want your ale, but we can't come out because they're all in isolation. So I was doing deliveries on the Friday when we were told to shut. I got a phone call to say we've got 6 hours and then we've got to close our doors indefinitely.
was that like a real like
oh my
shock?
God.
What
It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
It gives me goosebumps now, and I do get emotional about it because I was told that the pub would never shut. We closed the pub 6 years ago to do a refurb when we took over, and I was told, that's it now. You need to do stuff in the pub. You're going to have to do it through the night because you can't close the pub. Everyone expects to see the pub open 7 days a week.
Because it's central to this town.
Yeah, and to be told you're closing and you're driving and you've got a car full of beer that you can't come back to the pub because you need to honour the people that have ordered. I got back in the pub and all my friends, the family of the pub, everyone was here. I pulled in every single member of staff and went, right, we'll have a party. We dropped the price of our beer and we shut.
I think most publicans did that for this kind of let's have a party, but it's still very unreal.
I know they didn't, and that's not in Leighton Buzzard, that's across the country, knowing other publicans. No, they didn't. Because I think some people thought we'd be open in a week.
Did you think that?
No. I've said from the start, September, October.
I imagine that your story of COVID is going to be very different from most of the others that we've filmed. So when did you first sort of start to hear about COVID?
So for us, it was back in January. It wasn't labelled COVID back then. We look after people locally, both in Milton Keynes Hospital and over also in Northampton and even as far as Bedford. We were called to collect a deceased from Northampton Hospital because the family couldn't view. And for me, that was quite strange because they do have a viewing room in Northampton General Hospital. When we got there, I happened to ask why the family couldn't view. And it was because the viewing room was occupied with an inflatable isolation tent stroke mortuary. And I kind of said, well, what's that? And I was told that something horrible was coming. That was it. That was the total extent of the conversation. And so I knew back in January that something was coming.
There was an announcement made on the Friday afternoon before the bar side opened, and John heard it and phoned me and went, we need to shut. So everything was in place. So we had bookings, we had lots of people turning up to have a drink, and we made the decision to continue trading that night but close at the end of the evening and then not reopen until we're allowed to reopen.
I can imagine that everybody, because everybody knows everybody, they get to know everybody in the evening. It must have been heartbreaking for you.
It was, and there was it was the strangest atmosphere because I think it was the unknown, and people were making up their own ideas to what's going to happen, where this is going to go, and how long it's going to last for. It was a really lovely atmosphere. People stayed right to the end, very supportive, but then we had to shut. And
then it was into the unknown for you. So
yeah,
how did that feel?
It was terrifying. It was genuinely terrifying. But John and I sat down and we decided that we need to make the best of this. So there's nothing we can do about it. We can't sit back and just allow this to ruin what we've worked really hard to achieve.
And this was kind of the point, probably the lowest point for me, was after my wife then caught it and she was bedridden upstairs. I was bedridden downstairs.
And you said you were propped up on like
Well,
pillows
the weirdest thing was that I couldn't get comfortable in any way. I couldn't get the breathing right. And in the end, I was kind of distorted in this weird way. And I'd got 13 pillows to wedge me up so that, because I couldn't lay down, yeah. I couldn't sit back, I couldn't lay on my side because I'd got all these pains appearing in my back. And I kept trying to do that. My emotion was to go backwards because I was like somebody was treading on my throat. But it's about 9 days or something in, and I thought, I need to tell my daughter, you know.
Did at that point, Barry, did you think I'm going to die here at home without any help? I'm just going to not be able to fight it.
The first time when I thought I'd better call my daughter, and say I'm very ill. Yeah. I don't think at that point, this was late in the evening, I don't think at that point I thought I was going to die. I thought I would go to hospital. I was pretty confident an ambulance would be called and I'd go. And you know, my house is quite secure, so nobody pops in here. You can't get to my house without an appointment. I've got big gates. So I knew, you know, if my wife had took ill, we could both be found here dead in the house. But so that particular night, I'd made it from the conservatory into my lounge, but I just didn't have the strength to get on the settee. So I laid on the floor, and mentally, I deteriorated then. It was that point when I thought, you know, it's the middle of the night, and I can't get upstairs. I can't get to my phone. I can't get to the house phone. I hadn't got the energy to call my wife. Anyway, she was bedridden, so, you know, I thought, I got to get through the night. Just get yourself through the night and go and quickly call Tara. And within that 6 hours, I think I kind of rehearsed hundreds of times, or it seemed like hundreds of times. What do you say? You know, do you say goodbye? Do you say I'm not well? And I thought, I'm kind of practical, so it was like, if I'm going to die, I want to say goodbye. I don't want to say I don't feel very well. You know, I'm probably going to be in hospital for a bit. Don't worry, because it's not about that. The minute they know you're ill, they're going to worry. So I'd rather have said, look, the point is I'm going to die, and I'm sorry I threw your toys out when you were 2. And mentally I deteriorated 90% that night. And the main thing was, what words do you choose that she's going to remember before she breaks down? Because after the first sentence, I'm going to die, she's going to fall apart.
I am extremely fortunate. I have enjoyed a long career in the theatre. I've been an actress for over 30 years. I'm not a celebrity, but I have enjoyed a continuum of professional success. And so if someone were to say to me, do you know what, I'm afraid there's nothing happening, you won't, well, certainly we know that theatres are not going to be generally opening up till next year, but maybe personally, I will not have a career because there's always been too many people in our industry, but now too many people plus a backlog of things that should have happened this year, which will be pushed to next year. I don't care from my point of view if I never have an acting job, but I care about, first of all, I care about the young people who are just graduating, who've had their dream of, first of all, getting into a drama school. Perhaps they've had, constraints financially, and they've had to sort of work, scrimp and save, beg, borrow and steal to get the funding for it. And they've got this training and they've come out and there's nothing for them at the other end. And then when the industry opens up next year, the people who are already in the game are obviously, they're going to be in a good position, and possibly they'll be in a position to not be paid so much because they've got a cushion. So there's all of that. Now, on the good side, we had the news last week that the hero of the day, Rishi, has given us, I say given, obviously, I always think cynically, the money must have been there all the time. Anyway, the arts has been apportioned, lovely bit of funding, which means that theatres will survive. But of course, the question is, which theatres are going to survive? What about the theatres in the provinces? What about the small fringe theatres like the Union, like another favourite theatre of mine, Waterloo East? You know, will those theatres, I'm sure they've got their paperwork, you know, all up to date to go in there and ask. But it's always interesting when there are funds. It's interesting how the people that are financially savvy get to the money before the real people that need it do. There's also been an incredibly generous gift from SALT, which is the Society of London Theatres and UK Theatres, plus Netflix, and Sam Mendes, who's been very vocal in asking that the government give support. So they've created a grant, which means that freelancers can ask for an individual money gift of, you know, which will help tide them over.
Where's the soul of my pub gone? It's that bit. You know, I should have 8 real ales on, and I can't. Financially, I can't put 8 real ales on because I know it's not going to be busy enough for that. You know, and then I look at the tables. I've just had all the furniture inside reupholstered, and there's probably 15 chairs in there. And you're like, how do I create that atmosphere with people sat in a pub and talking, and we're a talking pub? How do you do that? That's hard. That's hard.
It's a real community pub, isn't it?
It is, and you know, and that's why I want to do bar service, because I want the customers talking to our staff. You know, I see so many people in the high street and they're too scared to say hello. You know, you get sort of like that, or you know, it's like, no, we can say hello, we can keep a distance, but people are scared. You know, and to attract them into a pub when people are scared is difficult. It's hard. I can't see it happening.
What do you see for the future then for the pub?
For the industry?
Are there any green shoots? Because a couple of our other interviews, they have talked about green shoots and change and how people have had to be innovative and creative. So.
We have, you know, I've got a screen up in the garden already. We're making more. We're offering 4-pint jugs so people come to the bar less. We've got 2-pint steins so they come into the bar less. You know, we're opening up the gin bar so we can use that. There's not just gin in the gin bar now. I'm not going to touch food. I don't see the point. And week by week, we'll gauge it. Our opening times will change. Our closing times will change. And I think when people start coming out more, then we'll keep looking at it. And it is
it's
literally...
getting the confidence back.
It's a day by day. Yeah, if we have to close at 8 o'clock, then I'll shut at 8 o'clock. If that's for the safety of my staff and the customers, I will close and take the hit. I have to.
I was surrounded by COVID at one point. Yeah,
and I should say that we're filming here with
yeah,
airflow and doors open
course,
and things, and obviously
all the precautions have been taken.
There's a distance. What I wanted to ask you is, I had heard that locally that they had opened up an ice rink.
They had,
for bodies. Did they get to use that? Or?
To be honest with you, no. As to my knowledge, it wasn't used.
So other funeral directors
there were 2 reasons for that, and I've got a really good relationship with the staff down at the hospital. Number one, we're very blessed in Milton Keynes, and that everyone within the chain, from the point of death to the coroner's office to the registry office, all work really well. They're passionate about what they do, and things were moved really quickly. And I think funeral directors also understood the need to pick up a deceased that little bit more promptly, and did so. And that kept the refrigeration banks at the hospital relatively low. Whatever they were doing at the hospital, they obviously did right, because the COVID levels are lower nationally than anywhere else, is my understanding at this time. So it kind of, the machine, if you like, worked really well in Milton Keynes, and it would be a good template clearly for others to follow. You know?
Oh, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
So with the deaths rising, did you ever reach that peak of fear? It's like somebody tells you there's a tsunami coming. And you were getting ready for it. Did it get to that point where you thought this is just not going to be ever manageable?
Yeah. I mean, we probably averaged 10 funerals a month, and we got to the stage where I actually had to turn people away and say, there's no room at the inn, you know, because whilst other people might take them in and tuck a body in a corner in a coffin, if I can't look after someone properly the way I'd want my family looked after, I won't take them on. And I had to turn 2 or 3 families away in the first 2 weeks of May. We were at capacity, which is unprecedented. I also had to insist that every deceased was embalmed, and that then keeps fridge space free. You know, and that kind of worked really well. And also made a point of picking people up very quickly to free up the fridge banks at the hospital. And I always, to be honest with you, I always move quite quickly, because if you pick someone up quickly before nature's taken its course, their loved ones visiting them, that experience is that much more pleasant then, and not unpleasant, you know. So I've always moved quite quickly, but the first 2 weeks of May was horrible. It was horrible.
So we had a meeting, and we put together a plan to do all the jobs that needed doing well, the jobs we can't do while we open. So bits in the garden, within the gallery, and just work really, really hard throughout lockdown. And with the gallery side, it was quite easy because we've got an incredible website, and I kept it visual throughout the lockdown. On the gallery side, social media. And we had some really wonderful sales, which shipped paintings to Dubai, for instance. So it was good, and it very, very soon became clear to us that there's something really positive coming from this. So we just built on that. Although it's still nerve-wracking, because once we were allowed to reopen, we didn't know how it's going to work, how people will perceive it, or whether they would come in. So
you said you've had a lot of new customers come as well.
Yes, it's since lockdown, and that's where we decided that actually something really positive has come from this. I don't know if everybody feels the same business-wise, but for us it has worked really well, because of lockdown, the area we're in, a lot of people came and did walks around this area, because we had the most incredible weather. If it wasn't for the weather, I think we will all be in a completely different place at the moment. But it's been very positive for us. And since we've reopened, especially the bar side, about 50% of our customers has never been before.
There's 2 things here. One, it hasn't happened in the world for 100 years. We've had SARS and we've had outbreaks, but we haven't had something where the entire world is affected. And secondly, as my doctor said in the hospital, we don't know what we're dealing with. He said, I'll be honest, he said, we're going to try some things. I had heart tablets, morphine, liquid. They took all my blood. I had the COVID test. They put water in me. They then wanted to give me a paracetamol injection, but they couldn't because I'd had 8 tablets that day. So we waited till like 4 in the morning, and I was so ill. I was so ill.
And you're such a strong man who looks after everybody else. Yeah,
I am the go-to guy.
And you're totally vulnerable there now, not knowing what's going on.
No, not at all. And he's going to die. They've got him a ward. You've got him a bed, but we won't rush it. And I'm like, I'm at the gates of hell kind of thing. And then it went all through the night and then the morning, and they said, we're going to get a doctor to have a word with you. And the doctor said, look, I think you are one of the people that will do better at home. I said, look, if you can save a bed, give a bed to somebody who needs the bed. I don't need a bed. I had more support, and I don't know, I had all those people around. I had more support in the 8 hours than I've probably had in my entire life, because I'm the go-to guy. I'm the guy you go to when you got a problem.
Yeah.
I'm the one that run in a building, in a pub when it was on fire. I'm the one that climbed up on dustbins to get in a window to rescue a baby that's trying to join a window. It's what I do. I'm the one that gets out and there's a car crash and I run over to help the person out. It's what I do. I was born to be a fireman or something. But for the first time in my life, I felt vulnerable.
And you said to me that when you came back, being such a private man, and you are a very private man, and it's amazing that you've let us in to talk to you about this welcome. And this very awful story that you're telling me, but you were talking about your neighbours.
Yeah.
And how...
Well, I didn't know any of the neighbours in this road.
Because you're private.
I've lived here 33 years and I've got gates for a reason.
Yeah.
The gates open, I drive in and shut them. I don't have to say hello. Some of it's embarrassment because I'm shy. I don't want to strike up a conversation. I don't like going to buy a bottle of milk from a strange shop because I don't want to talk. I'm like, and I'll leave the pound even if it's only 70p because I don't want the conversation about the change.
Netflix is doing really well because they have these fantastically well-written dramas. They have the top actors in them. Well, great. So let's keep Netflix going, but let's keep the stream of talent that is going to feed the future Netflix. And it's not impossible. You know, the government approved, there is money there. Now, we don't need the money. We need the clever thinking, the ingenuity of creative minds to find out where we can make the stories happen. I mentioned my lovely friend, Phil Wilmot, who's a director and a writer, did this production of Blitz at the Union, just announced that he lives in Rotherhithe and he is going to direct a production of Hamlet, an outdoor production, because Rotherhithe is on the banks of the Thames. And I've already seen a load of people, a load of colleagues on Facebook in the industry saying, oh, can I help? Can I do set design? Can I be in it? And I just think that this is the power that actors and writers and creatives have, is we're not, you know, unlike a lot of people in the world, we are not money grabbing material. In fact, our downfall is that we're not materialistic. We live in the land that is between the material and the imagination. But there is so much skill out there, and there is so much craft and, you know, beautiful art that wants to happen. And I don't think, especially now that people are getting into this new normal and we understand that we've got to be more hygienic, we've got to be more respectful of our social distancing. If we can keep those things in mind, I don't see why pantomime has to die at Christmas. I don't see why we can't have a load of circus tents and, you know, these pop-up concert venues giving a space for pantomime. It would be just fantastic.
You know, and that's why I think that's where the financial worry is because we might have to shut. You know, I run this place on my own, so to end up with it, I've lost my whole business. I know I have support, and then that's fine, but me, in my head, it's gone. You know, if we have to shut, it's...
And then what would you do? I mean, that must be having a really bad impact on you.
Go get some sleep.
Yeah, but then you know.
Then what do? You do. I think day by day you've got to deal with it. You know, I could sit here and say in 3 months' time we'll be at this level, but nobody knows, do we? We're all blind, really. And that's the worry. Who's in control?
Are other publicans talking to you?
We do. We speak via Pub Watch with all the pubs in the group, especially the High Street, and most of them are open. And from what I hear, they're all doing okay. Obviously, trade is a lot quieter. You know, you hear mixed feelings that there's a lot of younger kids out, the 18 to 21s. So I will be raising our age limit to 21, purely just to thin a group of people out, not because we don't want them in
so
here.
You're not getting crowds of young people getting drunk.
Yeah,
because they aren't, as far as we know at the moment, as vulnerable.
Yeah.
As the plus 30s, which in my experience it was sort of 30s and then older.
Yeah, we still want to create that safe environment, and we still want to see our friends. We do. We want to see our customers in here. We want to see our customers behaving and relaxing, but also, you know, if you don't go left when you should have got, you know, if you go left but you should have gone right, am I going to throw you out? No, but I am going to say, can you just follow the guidelines, please? You know, if you're going to push it, then you're going to ask to. You know, you've got to leave.
And what about the funerals? How did you manage the funerals?
So the funerals have been particularly tough. I think if you don't really care about what you're doing and it's just a job to you, it wouldn't affect you. But for me, that they restricted the chapel capacity from 160 down to 10 and took the chairs out. So there were 10 chairs, all social distance apart. So if you kind of picture taking a family who've just lost a loved one into a chapel's hard enough, but when they go in there, there's only 10 people in there, it's kind of a double heartbreak. And for them, I felt really sorry for them. And they've since increased it to 17, which is based on the floor space in the chapel. And I don't blame the crematorium, because they've got guidelines they've got to follow. And in fact, they're really good down at Crown Hill. But for the families, they didn't get that support they would usually have from everyone going. It's been awful.
I suppose my question, because I'm involved in bereavement as well, and my question about that would be, I know Crown Hill very well. It's very airy. Doors could be open. When they start to say that the pubs are open, socially distanced, are they not now allowing more people into? So the number's gone from 10 to 17. Interestingly, it's 10 as well for graveside service, which is completely open air, and they won't increase that number. I can only question it, but I have to dance to the tune they play, kind of thing, And my understanding is they get directives from above them. So I'm pecking them every week, and I'm encouraging families to call them, because it puts that little bit of pressure. But at the same time, you wouldn't want pressure to cost lives. No. So it's a dangerous ground, isn't it? It's difficult.
It's a bit of a grey area. Nobody really knows. So
I think that's the thing, because it's almost a secret disease. We don't know.
How can you fight something you can't see?
That's right, and Joe Average, we don't understand what it really is.
Exactly that.
And there's lots of different ideas and stuff going around.
Of course.
And so, it's difficult to make that stand. But I mean, bereavement in this country has been the bottom of the barrel for a very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
And people haven't really talked about it in the way that perhaps I hope they will be talking about it more.
Yeah, they need to talk about it. I mean, to be honest with you, I think changes do need to be made. And interestingly, some of the changes that have been made as a result of COVID, I think will stay in place. For example, when you look back to, for cremation, usually you need 2 sets of doctor's paperwork. And that followed the Harold Shipman case, where he was killing people. So basically, part of what they put in place to stop that happening again was 2 GPs have to see every deceased and look at the case history to make sure nothing untoward has happened. Now that's been reduced to 1, and they don't even necessarily see the deceased now. So, for example, if you had someone in a care home pass away, they would ring through to the GP. The GP would give the okay for the funeral director to come out without attending the scene. So usually, if they attended the scene and there was something they weren't happy with, they would raise that concern to the coroner, and the coroner would be involved. That's not happening now. So, it's a double-edged sword. Why? It's streamlined things a little bit to get these things done quickly. It's at the expense of any perhaps suspicious death. So that's quite an interesting development. Which concerned me. I mean, we received a letter from the coroner instructing us, if we weren't happy with anything, to raise concerns. And then the coroner's crew will be called in. Well, when you think about going to a house and this family have lost someone, at what point would you feel comfortable saying, well, actually, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to have to call the police and the coroner in. It puts you at a little bit of risk. So it's not something that I really would do. But that's what we were told to do. And I've got a letter still sitting on my PC to that effect that I wasn't really very happy with. So it's, I'm an undertaker, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a policeman, so I really don't want to be doing the duties that those people are doing, kind of thing. So that put us under more strain, and it's been really tough. It has been tough. It's eased off now, but the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks in May were horrible.
So something really lovely came through all of this
we often say
time.
That, don't we? Beauty from ashes, and new things grow and new things happen, and that's a really positive thing. Do you think that's the same thing, that same theme is running through Woburn at the moment for a lot of the businesses?
For anybody else, but the friends we've got that are traders within the village as well, some of them are doing really well because of where they are within the market. Some of the pubs and bars are struggling because of the social distancing thing, and I think one of the big problems for them is it's table service only, and when people go to the pub, it's that experience of sort of mingling with, and once people had a drink, the social distancing thing becomes non-existent. So I think they find it more difficult than us because
you are table.
we are table service, and that's the product we have. So it's working for us, and I think the positive side of it as well is the building does most of it for us, because it's all divided into little nooks and crannies. So it's really easy to separate people, and it's one of the lovely things that we've noticed over the last 2 weeks is the new people, and this is not ages, there's a lot of young people coming out and really enjoying it. And the reason they're coming out is they either saw us during lockdown while going for walks, or through social media, but it's not our social media accounts, which I find truly fascinating, because it's through their friends or family posting things, and there's a really lovely chain reaction starting to happen with us, meeting the most incredible new people. So it's really positive, and it's not amazing just yet business-wise, but it is going in that direction, and I'm very proud of what we have. So it is just building on that momentum, and for us, something really positive has come from it.
No, because I wasn't looking for sympathy. I had never been in lockdown. No 2 weeks in my life are ever the same. I've been on over 4,000 flights. I go to Brighton to have a meeting and drive back. I'm going to Scotland now and then driving straight to Wales. So no 2 weeks are ever the same. Suddenly, I'm now, I'm probably 5 weeks in, and apart from driving my truck into the road there to put the PR, I haven't crossed the road. So for me, it gave me something to focus on, and as well as focusing, I found that people were loving what I was making. So that was like, wow, somebody kind of likes my bird box.
Do you think it made you get up every day? Do you think it helped you to get better?
Yeah. Well, it helped me. It helped me to stay focused.
It's not just about commercial revenue. That theatre, community theatre, and the arts are important as a means of a community coming together and sharing their stories. I mean, for instance, I've always enjoyed a radio program which I think was broadcast. It was originally done in America. It's called The Moth, and it's kind of like stand up, but it's not necessarily for comedians, and it's where people come and they tell their story. It's in a kind of, I suppose, a pub like or cafe setting, but I think that yes, I do think that it's time for the voices to be heard, and I do think there will be a new kind of, maybe we won't call it theatre, maybe we will call it something else, a narrative sharing or whatever. But yes, I think there are ways and means, and yes, I do think in the way that revolution happens, it is and was a time for the old guard to come down. For some of the things that, we were sitting there just blithely, this is the attitude that is changing, that you think about mass television, you think about its game shows and detective shows, and because that's all there is, you get the feeling that, oh, well, maybe this is what people want, but it's not. It's what's cheap, easy television, and then you give that to the masses and you tell them. But now, we have people signing petitions if they don't like something going on, and I think with theatre as well, there won't be room for something that people don't really want, but the people that have got the money put it on, because it's got to be sort of bespoke in a way. It's got to be right. You've got to have your audience. You've got to know that people will want this. Or on a different level, you can try something out. If it doesn't work, then you don't waste time, money investing in it. You just move on, do the next thing. But something could take off, and then you get something that is different to the pablum that people have been getting for so long. Things do need to get changed up.
If you can be creative, you don't need a sign that says 2 meters. You don't. Bright yellow and black puts anybody off. I'm not going to go and sit and relax in that environment, and we've got to find ways that we don't have to do that, but it's still safe, it's still secure. It doesn't have to be. We're asking the customers to have some common sense and respect the house rules.
And how are they responding to having their names and phone numbers taken? Are most people doing that with you?
Because we haven't opened yet, we are...
You're not open yet?
No, we haven't opened yet, but if we...
So you're still surviving on deliveries?
Yeah, well, no, we've stopped that as well now, so we can just focus on getting the pub finished, getting it ready, get the staff training in place. We'll do a couple of trial evenings or days just so the staff can, understand exactly, because You can't answer 50,000 questions in a risk assessment. You can't. And customers are going to be asking questions and staff will need to be able to answer those. Well, they can't do that from looking for a 50-sheet sort of risk assessments. They need to be able to think on the spot. And with a few trial shifts, I think they'll be able to, because I think the customers will be asking them because our customers want us here. You know, they want to see us open, they want to see us fit and healthy, and I believe, you know, they will help us and they will support us.
Do you think that they will adhere to the rules when they've had a drink? Because I think that's what everybody's saying on the outside. People, I mean, I know myself, if I have a drink, I'm a lot warmer.
Same, exactly the same. So I'm here, there and everywhere, but...
Are people more likely to get huggy? And how would you say that? No, you can't be hugging, you can't
No, and I just think... Not discretion, but I think that is no different to when we were open. Legally, we can't serve anyone who is intoxicated anyway. So you sort of, common sense has to sort of kick in. Have a pint of water. Do you know what I mean? Go and sit down. We've got a screen that can divide tables so people from different households can sit together and still be protected. So there's those options. But if you want to stand there, can you come and sit here? And you two can have that conversation, and that's fine, and that's managing.
What about the impact that it had on you personally, emotionally and mentally?
Really tired. Yeah, really tired, dreading the phone ringing again, and obviously trying to juggle my time between so many families. You know, usually I've got 4 or 5 in at any one time. I had 13. So for me, that is really tough, you know, and some of those people want to see their loved ones and need a bit more attention. And so, you know, you're trying to split yourself. I want every family to feel that they're the only family that I'm looking after. And it's difficult when you've got 3 times the work rate to do that. We were doing 60, 70 hours a week. We've got a young son. It was really tough. Yeah,
and
really
of course,
tough.
not being able to see the family in hospital, and then that,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's like an ambiguous loss, really, isn't it?
Yeah, of
Because
course it is.
they haven't, you know, and I've been doing some work around that with people around, are you sure it was my loved one?
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's exactly why I did viewings, because these people need closure, and they needed to see that loved one to see it was them, because they weren't perhaps there even when they passed.
Yeah,
it was awful, and
that's what I was saying. You know, they went into hospital, some people, and they didn't
just were
come
never
out.
seen again. Yeah, for sure. And that's why, like I say, I made a point of anyone that wanted to come and see a loved one, I made that happen. Yeah,
I think that's incredibly brave of you, because I really do think it's brave of you. I wouldn't imagine too many funeral directors.
No, none of them. In
doing
fact,
what you have done.
a lot of them were taking coffins to the hospital and sealing there and there.
Yes.
It's brave, yeah. I suppose I never really thought about it. You know, my friends and family were saying, don't do it. But ultimately, how could I mean, the first, as I said, one of the first I had was a 6-year-old girl. How could I tell their family they can't see that little girl? And if I can do it for her and her family, I could do it for everyone.
So what do you think? I mean, I would find that quite scary myself, working with, I mean, in the hospitals, you imagine that's a very sterile environment as well. And I know funeral directors are too. Yeah. But you're one man on your own with somebody that has died from COVID. Yeah. And you're having to prepare them.
Yeah. I remember
How
driving.
How do you think you kept yourself safe?
You masked up. I wore a shield, gloves and an apron, and was just extremely careful. As regards deceased, you would make sure their throat was packed so their airways weren't expelling any air when you moved them. You just be as careful as possible based on the training you've had. I mean, ultimately, if you're dressing a deceased, every one of them, you would treat them as though they were infectious anyway. We were just that little bit more careful, you know. It's a tough one, really. I really don't know. I think you kind of go into overdrive. Some people, a pandemic will inevitably bring out the best and the worst in people, won't it? And I found for me, I just clicked into overdrive and got on with it, because that's what I had to do. You know, people have got to be looked after.
So pleased for you.
It's nerve-wracking.
Because it's such a lovely place, and you know, and it is unique. It's just beautiful, and the way that you've got this lovely garden and everything. So I'm really pleased. So there's hope for the future for Mosaic.
Absolutely, yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Johan, for your time today.
Thank you.
So it's been a strange experience which I wouldn't want to go through again, but as with everything in my life, I've tried to make use of the experience and the time.
I'm glad you did.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Barry.
You're welcome.
And thank you for giving your time when you're so busy. And
my pleasure.
Safe journey to Scotland.
Thank you.
Yes, it just takes a bit of strategy and planning. It's not all about putting money into things. It's about just taking stock and getting the right people involved. You know, politicians, as we know, they don't know everything. They know certain things, but just get experts in and people to come together and, you know, think tank this, and all will be well.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. Really appreciate your time.
And we're fortunate that our customers protect us. You know, if they see something that's not right, they will tell us, you know, and they will stand behind us and they'll support us. And, you know, that's probably why we don't get as much trouble as most, because we do have customers that want a good place to go and have a drink in. They don't want to be sat next to someone effing and jeffing, you know. You don't want to hear a conversation from the top of the garden.
And they've lost their livelihood, they're perhaps self-employed and were contracting, so they're not entitled to anything. And there were a lot of people that fell through the net as regards payments and furlough payments who, I just feel desperately sorry for them. But while I feel sorry for them and while I care, I can't do the funeral for nothing.
No.
So inevitably I had to turn people away or point them towards environmental health, which isn't nice, you know, an unattended cremation where nobody can go and they end up with just a set of ashes. It's not on, it needs to change. Yeah.
Well, I hope it does.
Yeah,
John,
me too.
Thank you for your very honest interview.
No, you're most welcome.
Really appreciate your time
No,
today.
thanks for coming.
Thanks, John.